And then we'll do the pledge and then we'll talk.
I'd like to pray the word here. So it's Ephesians 3:14. For this reason I bow my knee before the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, from whom the whole family on heaven and earth is named, that he would give us according to his riches and glory to be strengthened by the Spirit in the inner man, and that Christ may dwell in our hearts through faith, that we being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what's the breadth, the length, the depth, and height, and to know the love of Christ which passes all understanding. Now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above beyond all that we could ask or imagine, according to the power that worketh in us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so the flag is here. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. You can go ahead and be seated. So, as you know, we decided to go ahead and do local government tonight. You probably have heard numerous times in your life that all government is local, and so we're going to try to prove that tonight to you, I guess. And so I've asked, let me first of all say the city of Wasilla has a conflict on Monday night because that's when their city council meets. And so the items that I know that the city of Wasilla are dealing with, I'll give you just 30,000 view on that. First of all, they are in their budget season, so if you live inside the city of Wasilla and you want your street paved, or you want something done out of the city budget, go ahead and be sure that you hook up and do and check in with the city council. Probably will have 2 or 3 public hearings on the budget, so you can get to do the input for that. A couple other things that they are dealing with. One is short-term rentals. And what is happening, and I don't need to tell any of you, the definition of a family is changing. And so, say 5 years ago, if you bought a house and you had the covenants that said it was to be a single family living in that house, well, now you know that that's being really challenged about what is a family unit. And so there are people, say like of my generation, that when you say R1, which is a zoning designation that the city of Palmer and the city of Wasilla have, that means that there's not going to be rental units there. It's going to be a family that's living there. And now that is being challenged because, say, people our age have a larger home and we're sort of halfway empty nesters. And so we have an extra room or an extra, a couple of bedrooms or something like that. So then how does that get handled regarding living in, quote, an R1, where you would have short-term rentals, so you'd have people coming and going. Maybe they'd be renting the room for 2 nights or maybe probably no more than a week. And so how is that handled? And so I know that's one of the issues they're dealing with. Another one is kennels, dog kennels. And so how many animals, and I'll use dogs as an example, how many dogs can you have before it ends up just being your pet and it's turning it into a kennel? And say you only have 1 dog, but the dog accidentally or on purpose gets pregnant, and so you end up with 9 puppies. How long then can you have those 9 puppies until, say, a kennel is the description of 5 or more dogs? So how quickly do you need to get rid of those puppies in order to not be declared a kennel and have to go through a kennel license and all of that? So I know that's one of the other things that they're dealing with. So, and it's not only them, as far as I know, the city, and Steve can talk about it, but, so that's a little bit of some things that are going on with the city of Wasilla. So the person I invited tonight, besides myself, is Mayor Steve Carrington. Some of you probably know, we go back a few generations, and his most famous claim to fame is that he's born 2 years early, but on the same day as my oldest son. So that guarantees him his mayor position. You always wondered why you were qualified, right?
That's right. I thought it was because I did computers for you back when you had a real estate office.
Computers for me.
Actually, I keep blaming that I got involved with the MatSu Borough Library Board in the early 90s. You have to watch out. I was just looking, I was trying to remember what we're doing tomorrow night at our meeting. Yeah, pretty standard stuff, I guess. But, so you were talking about R1. I know in Palmer, ours has been a little easier or different. We've got a lot of, our downtown area is zoned commercial limited. So it's like, you're allowed to have like, well, I know of a building down off of Blueberry Street that has apartments above and then like commercial space below. And so there's kind of some exceptions built into that. But yeah, it's the same kind of thing. And then as far as animals goes, I just remember that, what was it, Verna Ewer always had 3 geese because you couldn't have more than 3 of any one type of animal. And I just knew I didn't want to go to her yard because 1 geese is plenty, much less 3. Let's see. What are we looking at? We are not doing budget. Our budget is January 1, so come September, we start thinking about it. We have an October election, and then anyone who's newly elected gets to just jump in and run because we have meeting after meeting after meeting on budget.
Talk about the library, I'm sure they're wondering about.
We have a library, well, kind of. So yeah, our library, we had a catastrophic failure to some of the roof. Sometime, I was asking again today, we've rented space at the old engineering, is it Great Northern Engineering, the green building across from Napa. And they're gonna put together a smaller storefront library there, hopefully opening this month. They don't have phones or internet, so somehow they think they need that to work and do their things. And we're looking at, I don't remember, we've gotten back, we put out a request for proposal for architect, and we still haven't heard from the insurance, technically. And we've heard rumbles from the insurance that we realize that we're probably gonna argue with the insurance. But in the meantime, we're trying to get an architect so we can start asking questions like, okay, if we try to rebuild the existing library versus, bulldoze and start again, what's the difference, what's the cost, I'm not inclined to rebuild because it was built in 84, we took occupancy in 85, but it was built to 1979 building standards. So that's a ways back, so I'm inclined to try to do something new. I've mentioned, some people have asked, are you gonna do like Wasilla and raise your sales tax to pay for it? And I'm going, we have not raised our sales tax in decades. I don't want to be the one that raises the sales tax. But what I've suggested is that we could go out to bond, and that's, to me, it's kind of like getting a mortgage, where we'd go to the voters and ask, okay, can we get a bond to finance a big chunk of the library? We've also been warning Murkowski's office and Sullivan's office and the governor's office and other people in Juneau that, Wasilla got a new library just here recently, we're going to be asking for money. So that's, part of our plan, but we know it's gonna take a while, take a bit. I told her I could talk for a minute and ask questions and Does anyone have any questions? Then I can go for a long time. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait, there's a microphone. Nothing else, so I can hear you.
So why did the roof collapse?
There was like some kind of report on all that. I think basically it was a combination of snow and ice load. There was a lot of melting and freezing and back and forth. But I don't remember the specific term that they used on it. But there was failure for some of the laminate beams that were used in there. See if I can keep track of all this. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, hi Steve. I just left the Wasilla City Council and they were discussing something called a MPO,
Yes.
Municipal Planning Organization, something like that, where they plan on taking over all of the transportation planning for this contiguous type area that includes Palmer and Wasilla. And I just wanted to know if you were really considering doing something like that, which would take all of the transportation planning out of the hands of the City Council and put it in a totally different entity, a nonprofit.
Well, we are considering it. We had a public hearing on it 2 weeks ago. We have another public hearing on it because somehow I suspected we might want to talk about it extra tomorrow night. And I'm planning to have, what's it called? Not a work session, a committee of the whole on the 23rd. So that's where the council can kind of dig in and ask more questions on it. And I went and had a meeting with Mike Brown and staff, trying to ask all the questions I could think of and talk about it. It's one of these federal schemes. I like the word schemes, but it's built into the federal code, et cetera, and so they've declared that we are urban because of our census, and then that's, they said because of that you will have to do I know I'm frustrating the cameraman because I keep moving around. Create not only an MPO, but also a couple other agencies, et cetera. Yeah, one that deals with wastewater, one that deals specifically with transit. I'm trying to look at it, I'm actually trying to do some research on, it reminds me of our airport. In our airport, originally it was, I think, 300 people voted at some meeting in the 49 or something that said that, hey, we want an airport, and they got a bunch of Boy Scouts and other volunteers and started making an airport. But what we now have is it's recognized by FAA as an airport. We work with FAA, and so when we come up with a project, we do lots of paperwork, et cetera. And then when it comes on, if it's approved, then they come in and they kick in a little bit of money towards it, like 92.5%. So it's kind of a funding source with a lot of strings attached. That is, it's the feds, but a lot of it has to do with safety, and a lot of it's at least. It's systematic, I guess I would say, that you can look at it and figure out what's going on. So I'm trying to look at the MPO in terms of, is this something that it's got a lot of structure and, that you can see and organize it. I think one of the questions someone had asked was, can we vote to not be part of it and then come back later? It's like, possibly, but what it is they're trying to form it where there'll be two different groups. One is the policy group, the ones that vote on projects, et cetera, and then a technical group that actually writes up all the details. And those will all be represented by one person from each, well, except for the borough, they get two. But one person from each of those bodies, and it could be a manager, it could be an elected person, et cetera. If you're not part of it, then you don't have any say in it. I've asked our manager, I said, would you put together, if we decide, okay, let's try this, for 5 years or something, what's the cost to us? Because my understanding of the way they're trying to lay it out is that kind of like with the airport and FAA, if you put in projects and, it gets agreed upon, that you're looking at like 90%, up to 90% could be covered. So as far as a way of getting roads paved, it's at least an intriguing option from the financial standpoint. But I suspect it would be a whole lot easier to drop out of it than it would be to get back into it. And those, was it 7, I guess it is? Is that right, 7? So there's 2 for the borough, 1 for the city of Wasilla, 1 for the city of Palmer, 1 for DOT, state DOT, and 1 for the Kinnick tribe, and 1 for the Chickaloo tribe. So.
What time is the hearing tomorrow?
During our regular meeting at 6 o'clock, so 6:30 at the city hall there in Palmer. And there's actually, I should mention, there's a special meeting at 5. We're having a joint meeting with our Parks and Rec board, and I think they're wanting to talk with us and give a presentation. They've been looking at the idea of trying to create a veterans memorial and see if the city will work with doing it kind of between the railroad right-of-way and the Pioneer Home, the Veterans and Pioneer Home. And I think they're going to ask us to, it's been kind of in the works for a little while, but they're going to officially ask us to at least put some money in towards planning and talking to the entities involved. Because we don't really have a veterans memorial in Palmer, so. Okay, sorry.
Back to the MPOs.
Yes.
Why would the tribes be involved, and why would we want them to tell us what to do? And the same thing with, is it DOT and there's another one, BLM, is it involved? The Bureau of Land Management?
No. It's a DOT, the borough gets 2, and then city of Wasilla, city of Palmer, and then the 2 tribes. Is that it, right? Yeah.
And they also said something about NGOs. Well, NGOs are usually created by people like Gates and Soros and all of them, and those are unelected officials that constantly want to be in our business and telling us what to do. And I don't think this is a very viable thing to be doing if we're going to have NGOs involved. That's just, I think that's creating more problems.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. The reason the 2 tribal entities are involved is because that's what the government says.
Federal.
That's a federal requirement.
Federal recognized tribe
They're the 2 federally recognized tribes in our,
corridor.
yes, I guess, core area. And the entity that the MPO would be would end up being a nonprofit, which, I mean, I understand there's some risk in there in the sense that nonprofits can, I mean, they have bylaws and they're very adjustable, they're very flexible. They're designed to be kind of that way. And sometimes they can hide things, etc. But my argument to that would be the only way to know what's happening is to be a member of it. So you can get, if you're on the board, then you get the papers. Because otherwise you're just, knocking on the door and there's, so to me, that's one of the reasons I would want to be part of it, is so I could ask for all the papers and what's discussions that have been happening. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My question regards transportation, and it's twofold. One is anybody in the borough or in Palmer asking questions about transportation as far as minimizing cars and maybe maximizing other ways of getting around, like walking, biking, so our area isn't so car-centric. I've got a book here, Walkable City, How Downtown Can Save America. Just a renovation, a kind of a mind shift away from everywhere we drive. One question. The other question is anybody in Palmer or the borough thinking about having developers accept some responsibility for the traffic they create? For instance, the Seward Meridian, the half of Seward Meridian that has not been improved, and then the doctors, et cetera, put that huge complex there, and the traffic in and out, as we all know, off of Seward Meridian, it's going to kill somebody one of these times. There are no lights, the road is horrible. Do the builders there, do any of the builders there, there's another one off of Trunk and, Trunk over off of Bogart, they're now near that roundabout. There are, multi-home buildings going up, and there doesn't seem to be a giant roundabout going in or some way to handle that other than, and there are going to be 100 vehicles going in and out of that twice a day, completely congesting an area that's not developed to take it. So is anybody thinking about either walkability or developing a city that's kind of not so car-centric and the congestion that we're kind of building in? Thank you.
Well, part of my understanding is that's part of the stated goal of the MPO is that it's supposed to do planning for the whole core area so that when a project comes up that it'll eventually be voted on by that one group, but the transportation or the technical group will actually go through and figure out all the details. And it's something I know we came up with. We just did a rezone, and there was a lot of questions came up about this is the skinniest road in Palmer, and you can't plow it. It's not the skinniest road in Palmer because I'm sure that I live on the skinniest road in Palmer, but it's about that same substandard size. And that's something, at least in Palmer and Wasilla, we have zoning and we are supposed to be keeping tabs on that. But my understanding is that's part of what the MPO would do for the projects is have that kind of planning in there. There's also a transit, it's more of a transit as the other group. And that's another big question that the urban classification is going to be, we have Valley Transit that goes now and they get subsidy from the feds by, is it like 2 million, I think I heard was the number? And that's going to go away for them October 1. So, but the idea is that someone's going to have to come up with, a transportation plan, and it can't be a nonprofit, ironically enough. It has to be a municipality or a borough. So, that's more questions, which I'm struggling understanding the MPO, so I haven't gotten too far into the transit part. But
So when is the next MPO meeting, or whatever that is? Can we go to that? It's a public meeting?
I believe so. It's there, and it's kind of a pre-planning meeting. I'm trying to remember the website. It's MPO.org.
The MPO hasn't officially come before the assembly yet, so when it does, it will be on the agenda for the assembly.
I should give you this.
But there.
For the Borough Assembly?
For the Borough Assembly, and like you heard tonight, apparently it's being discussed at the City of Wasilla, and then tomorrow night will be discussed at the City of Palmer.
Great.
But I can't remember what the tentative date is to bring it, maybe August and September, sometime before the Borough Assembly.
Okay.
And regarding the walkability, right now the borough is taking testimony regarding bike trails throughout the borough. And I don't know if they have set the public hearings. I know they have advertised for input, but I don't know that they've set some of the public hearings yet. And right now, the borough doesn't have a economic development impact fee, which is what would be there. Now, say go back to Palmer, where like when the cars in Fred Meyer, came in, they had to pay out of their corporation for that light there by Taco Bell.
Right.
But as far as the borough doesn't have any kind of fee like that, that of course is a state highway, and so the state highway has, and they have to do a study regarding the amount of traffic, etc. So there is some on the state highways, but there isn't any, like in Equestrian Acres, on the Palmer Wasilla, there's a light there now, which there hadn't been for years. So when they widened that, then the highway department just put in all of those, all of the lights that we have on the Palmer Wasilla.
Right.
And I don't believe, that there was any quote, sort of back requests to any of the developers that had done, because they're all like with Christian Acres. I mean, when was that done? 40 years ago?
I was gonna say decades, anyway.
You know, so whoever is even the developer, you know, at that time, so that answers some of those.
Yes, Mike?
So a couple things. You said that it might be easier to get out of it than getting into it later. But you also were talking about how that, you know, we got with the airport, FAA, you know, puts out a lot of money, or these MPO might put out a lot of money. So my question there is that, okay, so this day this MPO shelled out $1 million for something. And 2 years later, City of Palmer says, nah, we don't like this, we're pulling out. What's the ramifications on that one? That's number one. Number two, about, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, AARP put on this whole big thing about walkability. And this is actually, this is a big UN push that they were trying to do, and it was decidedly green, and climate change, and global warming, and climate change, and global cooling. And so there's a lot of that was in that too. So I'm really hesitant because if it's one of our existing government entities, like the borough or the city or, you know, state or one thing, we have some recourse because we can elect these people out. We can elect people in and we can kick people out. But with these MPO, with this as NGOs, this MPO, my gut, especially for this, you know, walkability thing, because they wanted to. I know that the meeting was wanting to do walking trails and biking trails and reduce the number of vehicles on the road and a whole 9 yards. And it wasn't sustainable. I mean, maybe if you're in Georgia or Florida or someplace like that, but it wasn't sustainable here at all. So I had some real concerns about that. But going back to the first question, how would we, if you wanted to back out later on, how would you end up, you know, if you consider that you're going to end up shelling, you might end up saying, they may say, oh no, now you owe us that $1 million back.
Definitely a good question. So my understanding roughly of how the money is supposed to work is the feds say, you need to do this, and then, you know, go through all the process, et cetera, and send us the bill. So what's happening though is I think the pre-planning meeting of the MPO has put in a request with the state to kind of forward fund the MPO for $1 million so that it has money to start projects, because don't think any of the 7 want to up that kind of money. And so that would be kind of the beginnings of funding. But yeah, that's still a good question. My understanding is roughly they're planning that 90% would be matched by the MPO with this money from the feds that eventually will come with a time machine. So, I mean, but it is a good question. You need to ask a few people about that, so.
I just looked online. The website is mbpmpo.com. And if you look on the front page, scroll down, there's an upcoming meeting tomorrow at 2 to 3:30 online. It's a pre-MPO steering committee meeting. So check out the website. It has all the details on how to get on the meeting. It's a Microsoft Teams meeting.
And that was mvpmpo.com, was it?
Yes.
Not a word? Okay. Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, at 2 o'clock Teams meeting. Yes. And you can ask Edna a question too.
Okay. This walkability all sounds nice and good. We live in a valley where it can get down to 20 below and the winds can blow 60 miles an hour. And anything where they try to get rid of cars and whatever, there's always a carrot and a stick, it seems like. The carrot may be, look, we're gonna build you nice bike trails, but the stick may be, we gotta put a tax and make these people who drive cars hurt. So I'm just asking, do you think any of that's a possibility?
With the feds? I'm sure it's possible. Again, that's why I'd say I would look at getting in for a period of time. But again, to Mike's point, yeah, I need to find out how hard is it to pull out and what are the financial ramifications thereof. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I want to just state, I am not a lefty liberal. I'm not talking about green. I'm talking about design, thinking in a way that, so that when I want to take two grandkids and go to two different stores, I don't have to drive, get them out, which in the wind is awful. Walk into the store, walk out, drive to another store. You cannot walk to two different stores in Wasilla, or Palmer you can, but it's just very difficult to do anything but drive to these little bitty, a mile here, a mile there. That's all I'm asking. I'm not green. I'm not talking about green. It's not what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
I would just add that this last weekend there was the Great Alaska Airmen's Gathering, and it was at the fairgrounds and the airport. And part of what they did is brought in the trolleys, those Anchorage trolleys, and they were running them around with a pit stop in the middle at the ice arena where the car show was. So both days I had different grandkids to ride the trolley, which is great because you can walk around and then you can sit on the trolley and recover. Not that I'm old or anything.
So, I don't understand why Big Lake and Houston aren't included in that. I mean, it seems like we're wall-to-wall people from Palmer on out to that area. So why aren't they included?
I'm sure it has something to do with the census, and they have magic formulas on exactly what the density is, and I don't know what those are. I thought it was interesting, the name they came up for it mentions Wasilla and doesn't mention Palmer, but we're in the map, but it doesn't mention us.
Yeah, one of the reasons is
One of the reasons for the core area is the Knik Goose Bay is the fastest growing area that we have in the borough. And so they just picked the most clustered area that had the minimum number of population in order to develop that core area. So that's why they didn't go out to say Houston and Big Lake. So,
and that's all
pre-designed by the census and the feds, okay?
And part of the MPO's thing they are supposed to do is to also be predicting where the population area is going to be growing in the next 10 and 20 years. And, I think one of the best helps we could do in this whole thing is somehow come up with more planners that wear cowboy hats. But that's my thinking.
Can I ask you something? No, what is it, NPO?
Oh. Metropolitan Planning Organization, it's kind of the generic term the feds use, and then our specific one that they're looking at creating is called MatSu Valley Planning for Transportation. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said N like in November.
Oh, sorry.
I was like,
MPO,
okay.
You mentioned at the very beginning that you didn't want to at least raise taxes, as in for like a sales tax or increase it to be able to cover the cost.
I'm not gonna be that guy, no.
This kind of goes for the borough and you. What is the plan to deal with the hyperinflation that we currently got going on to compensate for that if we don't raise sales taxes or if we don't increase the mill rates that we're paying on our property taxes? How are we going to be able to compensate for that? Is there budget reductions that are taking place that's offsetting that? And then the second part of the question would be is we've got the carbon initiatives that are being pushed through and the economic social governments, ESG, that is a part of it, and trying to get loans and financing as in a business. If you don't play the game with the ESG that they're putting into place, you're not going to see anything. Where do you stand as a borough and as the mayor of Palmer when it comes to the carbon initiatives and locking up our land to get this Ponzi scheme money? That's kind of the way I look at it.
Okay, as far as inflation, et cetera, well, Palmer has done actually fairly well. I mentioned the Great Alaska Aviation, or Great Alaska Airmen's Gathering. They didn't do it in 2020 because of COVID, and then because Anchorage was busy being squirrely. I'm not sure how we managed to invite them to come out, but they came out to Palmer, and so we've had it 3 years now. And that was one of our, and there was, I took a picture of the red parking lot at the fairgrounds. It looked like a weekday during the fair. It was really full. They were talking about 30,000 people coming out for this thing. So for the city of Palmer, we've actually done better than our projections on our sales tax and stuff. So we're, at least so far, doing okay. The borough, no, we don't have that much to help them.
Can I just do I have a whole thing on property tax I want to do in my report on the borough. Can I postpone that question until I do that tonight?
Yes. And the carbon initiatives being pushed through, because it affects the MatSu Valley dramatically.
I like carbon fiber as it has to do with airplanes, et cetera, but I don't see getting involved with the carbon initiative on the city level. We'll just put it that way. Because your stuff is your stuff.
I'll address it when we get to the borough.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find out, has there been any studies on who's going to use this transportation? Because being from Denmark, downtown Copenhagen, I grew up. You go down, you wait for the bus, it comes 5 minutes later, but I don't see any Americans standing on the side of the road waiting for a bus for probably half an hour. And so, yeah, we have all these buses that drive around, but is anybody going to use them?
That's a good question. We were talking about how we put in some bus stops, at least 2 or 3 I know, right in Palmer, and for a few months they tried to use them. Now they're smoking shacks.
That's why
That's true. Or worse. Like I said, I know there's more transportation stuff coming up, and I'm still trying to understand the MPO thing, and the transportation is another entity that's supposed to come about.
Yes, we can just go down cars. That's what they want.
What was that question? Wait till you get the mic, please.
It was just a comment. I was saying that they're trying to take our cars away. That's what they want to do. That's why they're doing these 15-minute cities.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked 2 weeks ago. In the future, if the federal government says you can't have gas stations anymore in your MPOs, what will happen then?
You ever heard of the Alaska Independence Party? I always thought it was a great idea. I always thought that we should join with the western provinces of Canada and make our own country. But that's my political thing. Do you want the microphone now?
I don't know.
You don't know after that?
All the questions? Does anybody have any other questions?
I'm brave. I can take more questions. Especially about Palmer.
Yeah, I understand you were speaking of budgetary concerns and stuff when you were talking about the library. Nowadays, people are going with the, we call them brick and mortar. They're doing without brick and mortar now for a lot of different services as well as products and stuff. the technology is advancing faster than I think a lot of us can really comprehend. Self-driving taxis are 5-10 years down the road. Yes, they may be trying to rid us of our autonomy, driving ourselves around, but we will have, through technology, some autonomy, and it will be of our own choosing if we allow the centralized governments to dictate and plan and give us solutions rather than the solutions being offered here. I think there are a lot of good ones, but I think it's important that we stay local. When it comes to budgetary concerns, I question the fact of whether or not a library is really that critical in the future because of the information technology that's being utilized. People just go there now just to get online, a lot of them. Books, my family's always been collectors of books, and I love them. And I think it should be each person's personal responsibility to do that. But to think people are going to pay for something I enjoy, I think is the wrong attitude. And libraries, like I said, when it comes to getting information nowadays, it's readily available. And it's a lot cheaper than building a building that needs to be maintained for the people who need to be retired, who need to be paid for. There's a lot of expense in public facilities.
Well, now in Palmer, even though I'm the mayor, I only get 14% of the voting power. I vote like a council member. That's just 1 of 7. And so my personal view is I like the Palmer MatSu Valley Federal Credit Union. I'd like to clone that, put it there for a library, but make it so that you have lots of meeting rooms. And talking with like homeschoolers and stuff, that's the thing they want, is not just access to some books, but the technology and meeting rooms. I mean, and I would probably put a larger chamber we could use for the council there, et cetera. But I mean, that's just my personal 14%. I can't control the votes. But that's what I'm after. And I don't see there would be an increase in the number of books and materials, but I think it's the services. And especially from a community perspective, those are the things that I think are important.
Hi, I'm on the library board at large, and it's been very interesting. My mom and I have gone to all the libraries in the borough, and I would say it's the best kept secret. It's amazing what they do within their communities. Like they have seed catalogs so that if you have extra seed packages, you can just go there and exchange. They have these little kits that you can check out to do science experiments, crafts, whatever. And the way they pull their communities in is just incredible. So I didn't know that. Thank you, Edna. She got me on the library board, to serve. So it's been very good, and I'm astounded at the wealth of information. But back to the controversy with libraries, because I keep bringing it up on the board. Let's have conversations about the books. And of course, people don't want to hear the word ban. I'm not saying ban, I'm saying evaluate. So there is a really good resource, booklook.org, and it rates all these books that's on the list from the school district, and the one that is presented to the borough because it's been contested. Let's talk about it. And so you can go in there, and some of them actually have like a book report. So I didn't read the entire book, but I looked enough at the book report that I wouldn't want to read that book. Because once something is seen, you can't unsee it. And so back at the city council meeting that we had a while ago, the city attorney was going to review the city's ordinances about books. I already got from one of the gentlemen here the Alaska statutes that says what is indecent material. It's very clear, very spelled out, and it's a Class C felony. And people need to be aware that we have power in our Alaska statutes already to go and stop this by calling on the law. But the question to you is, what did the attorney say? She was going to go on vacation, she was going to research and then get back.
I'm not sure, there is a little bit in our code, but most of it, I believe, is an internal policy with, there's like what's the term? A method for challenging materials in the library, and there's a policy and a procedure for doing that. And I don't, I'm trying to think, how do we say this? So far, this year, we have not had any materials challenged for the Palmer Public Library by procedure. And this is one of my things that now I'm enough of a libertarian that I can appreciate someone that wants to be an anarchist and get frustrated and want to rail against the system. But if there's procedures and policies in place, I want to see that rule of law followed. And then if we need to fix something, that's something we can do. But until that happens, I don't, I'm not going to support anarchy, so to speak. So that, it's very specific. I'm not saying it's necessarily fair, but it's very specific and it's very lined out. And that's my view on it. And any other hard questions when we talk about museums?
I'd like to add input on that last one. I'm a policy and procedure person, so I actually did this with the Anchorage School District. We want to be out here, but we're presently inside that other boundary. And I've been a part of taking the questionable books, that one in particular, and don't read it, it's totally defiling. But I went to the school board meeting. I also presented the school board with, I found 6 statutes that I believe this material violates state statutes, and they weren't indecency, they were material, pornographic, and just, there's 6 of them. 2 of them put young teenagers at risk of committing a Class A felony if they follow the instructions in that book and other books. Dreadful. I handed them all the statutes, I highlighted them with yellow, I gave my comments, I sent all of that to the State Attorney General. It is agreed by the State Attorney General that these qualify as Class C felony material. I was then directed by him to take it to the Anchorage Police Department, which I did, and had a discussion at their gated front window with a little slots to walk through. Handed him all the material, and he circled it back. He was going to redirect it back to the school. It can be a tight circle, but there really is valid concern, and if there are routes to handle it with the anywhere in the MatSu Borough, we at least need to do a better job than Anchorage has done. And I'm glad the library has good stuff. That's always been the traditional place. I used to leave the library once a week with laundry baskets full of books. And I was back with them because my kids read them all in a week's time. So I love the library. Historically, it's done wonderful things for my own family. But we do have to follow the policy, but sometimes following the policy can get you be looking at yourself at the end of the circle.
That's good. And I'll say, one of the not so known things is I actually have a master's in library science. And so I've been to library school. I know how much indoctrination takes place. And and that's why I joined the library board, as I was studying for library science, and I wanted to see what was involved with libraries. And somewhere in there, I had to make a decision. It's like, if it ever comes down to it, would I go with, what the American Library Association says, or what my local community says? For me, it's a no-brainer. It's the local community. This is the reason for libraries.
Right.
So I'm not saying there's not, we don't need to weed things out, etc. I'm just saying I want to follow the rule of law and procedures.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were the microphone person.
I am thinking that
I'm old enough to have remembered seeing Playboys and penthouses on book stands in grocery stores. You don't see that anymore. Okay? Because people developed a way to cover them, put them back. We don't have many adults in grade schools, middle schools, or high schools checking out books. The only person that I'm aware of that has mentioned banning books are librarians and people who have policies, not covered by laws, policies, who is doing everything that they can by policy to resist doing the will of the people. It needs to stop. If you want to have a borough library, a city library, that people have access to these books, that's one thing. Don't put them in the kids section. Cover them up. People can ask for them. They're still available. Nobody's asking ban the books. What we are asking is a little bit of common sense to be used to keep the children from having access to the books.
The only thing I would disagree with is I'd say a lot of common sense. Oh, microphone's running around, okay.
You maybe end up being the whole program here.
I'm brief.
Thank you very much for taking some very hard questions. Society is deteriorating. Have you seen that?
Just a little bit.
I'm reading a book right now by Eric Metaxas. It's called A Letter to the American Church. If you don't have it, get it and read it. Because it's a mandate on our church, the American church, the contemporary day. What we have failed to do is stand up for the righteous standards that God is mandating us to stand up for. Since we have neglected our responsibility, guess what's happened? You have a deterioration to the point where now a child can learn how to pleasure his little classmate. And I won't go into the details because the book does. Then you've got...
Question, sir.
I'm making a point. Ma'am, please let me make a point. Please. The point is, the institutions have suffered the consequences of the very deterioration of society. So how can anybody justify building another library so we can have, what do they call those guys that think they're sexualizing these little kids? How is it that we can even justify allowing the possibilities of it anymore? We're all going to suffer until we stand up. Part of the suffering is no to the buildings. Just to let everything fall apart. We should not be building anything until we get control of the moral decay of this society. Period. Otherwise, they take it and we pay for it. Therefore, when I elect a leader, I expect you to understand that as well. And this message, I should yell it louder because it should go to Mike Dunleavy and his Attorney General for no prosecutions of all of the crimes that have been happening all around us. Period. Thank you for letting me have my say.
Eric Metaxas is a good author. He's with, I think, Colson Fellows and
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So very quickly, Black Birch Books is having their drag story hour for kids on June 10th. I think it's at 12 to 2. So will that follow under any of the obscenity laws? I mean, I brought up with her prurient behavior, that's a federal offense. Just questioning the powers that be.
Main clarification I heard from the Wasilla mayor was it's not in the city limits of Wasilla.
It's a private business,
Yeah, it's a private business.
private business.
But it sits in the borough,
It sits in the borough, so
and there are 70 laws.
in the borough? No,
They're federal laws.
they're federal laws.
Federal and
But
maybe
as you heard from regarding the fact that the Attorney General won't do anything about it.
Exactly.
So,
So don't build anything anymore until they get their act together. Period.
pardon, what, Dave, did you say?
We should not be building anything anymore. Quit asking the taxpayers to subsidize anything
Well-
if our system will not enforce the law.
The city of Palmer, and you heard the mayor earlier, he said that the vote would go before
The people in the city of Palmer, if they wanted to build a library. So that will be their decision.
And I'm helping you understand that we should not until we get
Dave,
control of the
Dave, now
system.
that's enough, okay? We have other people that want to talk, okay?
Go ahead.
All right.
I don't need to be reprimanded.
I just wanted to make a comment about the gentleman that said, you know, technology's moving on and his family, he can provide the books for his family and everyone should have that. But you forget there's a lot of families that don't have access, don't have the financial means to have access, so they do use the library. And there is validity in having that brick and mortar. As a teacher, and you don't have to agree with me, but I know that, especially the kids that I worked with, needed to have a place to go. They didn't have a computer at the house. Not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has a smartphone. And so those libraries are used a lot. I don't agree with those books. I'd like to see them out of the library. But we've got to find a medium, and a happy medium on this. Get rid of those books, but just not build libraries. I don't think that's the answer. You don't have to agree with me.
Well, if no one's going to ask me a question, I should give up the mic.
Let's,
If you've already asked a question, let's move on, okay? I think all of us agree regarding the libraries and what needs to be there, et cetera, but let's go ahead and go on to a couple more presentations. And so we will be circling back because as you saw the advertisements, there was a red button on there saying some hot issues. So we will take and be circling back to a presenter that will be talking some more about the libraries. But I want to caution that person who I also did the other night is that this is being live streamed, and so be sure that you are not accusing people that you don't know how they have acted, etc. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to switch from libraries. As you know, the borough has 5 libraries, and just like what you said and what Marty said, is they are really community centers as well as libraries. Now, what stuff is in there, you know, there certainly needs to be looked at, and they are being looked at right now. So, a couple of things I did want to talk to you about. One of the things, as you know, that I am very concerned about the public process, that there is transparency and that the borough follows the open meetings law. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a House bill that you probably have never heard of. It's House Bill 133. Does anybody know what it is? Okay. The other thing that I've talked to many of you about, and many of you said yes, is to be appointed to boards and commissions. And we have 53 boards and commissions at the borough. 33 of them have the word service area in their title. So remember that, okay? So that's over 2/3 of them have that word, service, those two words, service area, in there. So House Bill 133 would exempt all service area boards from the open meetings law. Yes.
Why?
So anyway, the bill hasn't gotten any place. It is sponsored by a local representative who previously was on the Borough Assembly. And that bill hasn't moved in Juneau, but I don't know what's going to happen next time. So there are some, and I don't know for sure, there was a resolution that was proposed to come forth, and it was on an agenda for the Borough Assembly to give support for that legislation. And I asked, I as mayor do not have the authority to pull anything from the agenda, but I asked the deputy mayor to pull it, and he pulled it. And so that will be some things that are coming up. So I guess in talking to you about that, whether it's libraries or whether it's also open meetings law, is that we are constantly have to be on guard all of the time. And so you have to be sure that you have elected people as well as you yourself. Just because we elect good people doesn't, and they agree with you and they will fight for you, we still need to back them up and support them and pay attention to what is on the Borough Assembly agendas, as well as the City of Palmer and the City of Houston, as well as the City of Wasilla regarding that. On the MPOs, once the borough went over 100,000 in census, the borough didn't have anything to do with that. It showed up in the Federal Register by the federal government that we were, as Steve said, we were not considered rural anymore. We are now considered urban. And how that is going to affect some of the loan programs, housing loan programs you have, etc., we do not know at this time, and nobody seems to be able to tell us. And so that could have some very far-reaching effects. Anytime we get something from the feds that says you have to do this, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. And as well as I can tell you, the majority of the assembly feels the same way, and so does our borough administration. But some of these things are just forced on you. You can push them back, and you can try to resist them as much as you possibly can, and you can try to make the best lemonade you can out of those lemons, but some of those things are just pushed upon you. And regarding the MPO and transportation, the caveat, the carrot that they give you is that you do need $1 million to set it up. The Department of Transportation will have that in their budget to do that. Then they'll be reimbursed by the federal government. And then they will give us $10 million to do road projects in that core area that would not normally come to us. So that's the carrot, okay? I think everybody understands that. And then we will be deciding the roads that go into that area. And the boundaries have pretty well been set. Now, there are a couple choices in the boundaries that we are going to try to fight as much as we can, and that's where they've taken a subdivision and put part of the subdivision in the MPO, in the core area, and part of the subdivision is not in. So that's, and we hope to be able to take and fight that and either get the whole subdivision out or whatever. Bert?
You mentioned the carrot there, but what's the stick, or a better word for it, what's the strings attached to it that the federal government is going to require to get that $10 million?
The storm drain the storm drain systems that is tied to the Clean Water Act, and transit. And transit is, we will get a grant from the feds, 50-50. So the other 50 will come from the taxpayers in the borough.
No.
We just talked about the buses a second ago, so.
Yeah, so that's what will happen. We will have a year to be able to do the transit. So we're looking at, there is a couple programs that we're looking at. One is, there is for seniors, a voucher system from the Medicare, and the taxis right now, there is at least one taxi company here in the valley that the voucher system is 30% of their income. And what happens is the person that qualifies for it gets the voucher, they call a taxi cab, and then it's up to the taxi company to be able to get the money from the feds. So there's that. The other thing is, maybe we won't buy or have to get all of these buses. Transit to me is something that just makes me very unhappy, because I've just seen too many buses, huge buses with one person riding around. And in one of our meetings recently that we had, the mayor from Wasilla said, if you live on Lucille Street in Wasilla, which is the street that goes by, Key Bank, and goes in front of the fire station, everybody you have an idea where that is, downtown. If you live on that street and you call the transit company and want to be taken to Walmart in Wasilla, it takes you an hour and a half. Because of the way that they have, So, as you can tell, there are lots of things that we have to constantly be on guard on and continue to fight. The good thing, I think, is the fact that you do have a very conservative assembly, and you have a very conservative school borough administration. Now, let me tell you some good news, okay? Everybody ready for some good news? Yeah. Yay! Aren't we glad we live in the valley? Yeah.
What is the time frame for enactment of that?
For what?
Enactment of the MPO. What's the time?
We have to have it a year from the time we got the census, which we got the census in December of last year. So the MPO on the assembly portion has not gone yet to the assembly. It's still in the pre-planning stage, so it goes to the assembly, then it goes to the governor, and the governor has to sign it, and all of that has to be done by the end of December of '23. The transit, then, we're supposed to have a year before we have to implement that. So I don't know, as Steve said, the Valley Transit very easily could lose all of their federal funding 1st of October, because the feds are on a different time, they're different fiscal year than the rest of us. So anyway, so one of the things, I speak a lot at chambers, and we just cut some ribbons for Senior Citizen Center up in Houston, etc. And I always tell them there are good things happening in the borough. And of course, I always get the snickers, But anyway, so let me tell you a couple of good things. On our Tuesday night assembly meeting this last week, we got a resolution from your school board, and thanks to all of you, you also have a very conservative school board, that they had reduced the amount that they wanted from property tax in the borough from the amount they first requested, and they reduced it down by $5 million. So when you see a school board member, be sure and thank them for that. That will end up being probably about $500,000 off of your taxes. So they are, even all the other stuff that's going on, and if you saw the headlines, you know, they're in the midst of negotiating a couple contracts. The school board is, and so how that's going to work out, you know, I don't know for sure. And I don't know what they have decided to do regarding their book review. They had put out a request for book review committee members, and they had 300 people plus that applied for that. And talking to one of the school board members, they said that they had gotten a legal opinion from their attorney that said they had to do a lottery system to appoint that committee. And so what the school board people wanted to do was, you know, say like Tom Burgess in the Butte, he isn't the person I talked to, but Tom Burgess in the Butte, they want each individual person to be able to choose somebody from their area to be on the committee to review the books. But with a lottery system, you know, that's sort of taken out of the hands of the officials and put into a committee that is not. Yeah, Mike?
I talked to Kathy McCall about that they are pushing very hard to do the latter. So getting rid of that lottery, because that was
Yeah, I know they're trying to push back on it, but, you know, when you have an attorney's opinion, besides get a new attorney, which might not be too bad an idea.
So how much, how much effect is this organization that the librarians are supposedly coming up with to oppose this review process and group of citizens that want to be part of that? How much effect is that resistance going to be?
I honestly don't know. It will, whatever recommendations the group comes up with, once they work out how the people are going to be appointed, which I think is where they still are, right, Mike? That's what I understood. They're still negotiating, trying to get that. And once they decide that, those are not elected officials, they are just appointed officials, and just like, you know, you were appointed, you give policy and decisions and questions and ideas to the elected body. So in your case, it goes to the assembly, but in that situation, that library book review committee, they would be, giving that information to the school board, and then the school board would be up to the school board to make the decision what they wanted to do. Yeah. Terry?
And do you want to talk about what's going on May 18th?
No.
Okay.
I'm not a part of that, so I don't feel that I should. Somebody will talk about that tonight, but I'm not involved. It is a public meeting, but it does not involve the assembly. So.
I just wanted to let you know.
Right, yeah, that will take place tonight.
Thank you.
But it won't be me.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So, CJ, but yeah, what I did, hopefully I have enough. I prepared, all of you I know own property, and you're probably wondering many times about, okay, how do they exactly set the mill levy? And so I took a sheet out of our budget. So for the borough budget, the full budget is on the website, and you can look up certain areas or whatever, but I took this sheet out, and what this is, it talks about the mill levy that has been in the past as well as now, and then it gives us some instructions on it. So the administration proposed an 8.8 mill levy, which is a drop from last year. Last year's was 8.9. Now, with the 5 million reduction from the school, that will take that mill levy, and that's for everybody in the borough pays that, and we'll take it down to 8.5, okay? Then, if you look on that sheet, you will see at the bottom of the first half where it says like City of Palmer, City of Houston, and City of Wasilla. So say you live in the City of Palmer, you would pay the 8.5 plus the 3 mills, it says at the bottom there for the City of Palmer. Does everybody see that? You see where that is? Now, the City of Wasilla, you can see, does not have a property tax. So you would pay the 8.5, but if you look up in the area under where the 8.5 is, and it says non-area wide, which means that it is for specific areas. And if you come down to, let's see, it is let's see, 2, 4, 6 from the bottom, where you see Central MatSu Fire Service Area. Does everybody see where that is? So if you look over to the right, you see that they are 1.9. So if you live inside the City of Wasilla, you would pay the 8.5 plus the 1.9. So like I know some of you live in different service areas, fire service and road service area. If you're inside the City of Houston and the City of Palmer and the City of Wasilla, you do not come under a road service area. So say, let's see, there's like the Sutton Fire Service area is 3 mills, right? So the people that live in the Sutton Fire Service area would pay the 8.5, then the 3, and then further down there should be an Alpine Road Service area. There it is. It's like 3 up from where the Central Fire Service area was. So they would pay then another 3.3, what is that, 82? So you would have the 85 plus the 3 for the fire service plus the 3.3 for the road service. Okay, so when you get your tax bill and it says, 10.2, you're going to think, well, Edna told me it was only going to be 8.5. So then that's why not everybody has the 8.5. Okay, is there questions on that? Yes, sir.
My wife and I have lived in the same house for 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And without adding any square footage on,
Right.
our assessments went up $170,000.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife works in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
She did a pullout, or she does reports.
Sure.
Well, it just dropped 70,000. I really think it's way over assessed, to be truthful. And I'm just wondering if there's any movement that way or why 170, the house was built in 82.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Let me play devil's advocate. What would you sell it for if you needed to sell it and put it on the market right now?
The highest dollar I can
See, and it's things like that cause the assessed values to go up, because the fact is, let's say your house is worth $300,000. I'm sure it's much more than that. Let's say it's $300,000, and you want to put it on the market, and you think, well, I bet you maybe I can get $325 for it, or maybe $330, and you put it on and you get an offer and it sells for that. Then you have just increased all the $300,000 houses in the whole borough up to, say, $325,000. Yeah.
But what's happening, although my wife and I are going to age out to where we get a discount, I'm thinking that you raise, assessments keep getting raised that much, it's going to run people out that they're going to have to leave and move to the lower 48 because they can't afford the taxes anymore.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, you have to be careful where you move to, because the fact is, in Alaska, people with this color hair, naturally, we have some pretty nice things. I mean, there's a lot of states that do not do property tax exemptions up to $264,000 of your assessed value, you know, and, you know, I know with us, both my husband and I have a car, our license, our license plates are free, you know, our hunting license are free, type things like that. So there's a lot of states don't have those kind of things. So, you know, but you're right, and we hear that all the time, and the last thing we want to do is send people away. But again, the other thing is that they're telling us, and they just told us when we dedicated the new facility there in Houston on Friday afternoon, that the seniors are the fastest growing segment of our population in the state of Alaska. And now whether that's grandkids, it's probably not property tax maybe, sir, but it's probably grandkids that are calling them back. But yeah, it's right, it's a balancing act. Let's see, somebody has the mic. Okay.
It's not just houses that have gone up. I'm on the fire department in Central MatSu actually, and our kind of like an average of all our stuff has gone up at least 40%. So if we want to go out and buy new fire gear for somebody, it's 40% more. So just saying.
Two things. I think that there are a lot of nonprofits that should be contributing. They use the roads, they use the fire departments, they should be taxed. Two, what about a Proposition 13 that was done by Citizens Initiative in California a long time ago, where you are taxed that what you pay for the house, and it doesn't go up maybe 2% a year until the next time it's sold. I don't know how any of you feel about that, but I think it's a good idea. I think both of them are really good ideas.
Right, well, you just have to do like what they're doing with Frank Joyce. You know, you'd have to get a referendum and put it on the ballot and see if it would pass. Because I don't think probably the legislature has the appetite to do it, and that's the only way that you can do it. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, any other questions or any of the other questions that you had for Steve that you didn't get the borough end of it?
What was the number of that bill you said for the open meeting stuff?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. And we need you to have the mic, sir, please, for the recording. Thank you.
I'm sorry. What was the number of that bill that you said had to deal with the open meetings laws?
House Bill 133. Thank you. Yeah. And it's very broad. The way the change is that all service areas in the boroughs are exempt from the open meetings law. So it's very broad. Now, I did talk to the attorney, and he said if it did become law, that the assembly could decide which ones of the service areas, whether it would be fire service, road service, Telkey and water and sewer service, whatever service areas, they could exempt them from that. But that isn't, to me, isn't transparency. It isn't the public input, because what could happen is, say you have 3 people on a road service area, 2 of them could get together and decide, you know, really, I think my road is the one that should be paved this next year. You know, you vote for mine, and then next year I'll vote for yours. And then they come to an advertised meeting, and the public is saying, you know, listen, we want this bridge fixed in this area, or we want, you know, a different road fixed. And they make the motion, and they put it on the record, and it's all done before. And I'm going to be a little bit tacky here, but I think you guys all love me, and so I probably can be. So then when I was fighting this on the administration and the assembly level, somebody said to me, well, you know, if I'm on the road service area and there's a tree that's fallen off on the road and is stopping traffic from going, I want to talk to somebody about that. And I said, and I want to talk to one of the other road supervisors. You know what I said to him? if you're not smart enough to realize that that tree needs to be moved and you need to put in a problem reporter to have the contractor come out, I think I need to replace you off the road service board. So anyway, as I said, that's sort of catty, but sometimes people, it's just.
You just have to make a point.
So anyway. Okay, anything else? Okay. Yes, Charlie. There's a mic there.
Has there been any movement on House Bill 49 and 50?
I was listening today to the Senate Finance Committee, and they were taking testimony. A number of the people that were here that talked, that's the carbon tax bill, and we had a presentation here was a couple months ago, I guess. You can't find it online because they automatically
Facebook, Rumble, Twitter.
Go ahead.
That video can be found on Facebook, Rumble, and Twitter. YouTube unfortunately banned it and called it medical misinformation.
Oh, jeez. So, but it's my understanding the School of Government even lost theirs on Facebook. So we maybe yours is still on Facebook, but
mine's still there.
Yeah, but ours isn't. And so they did have some testimony today on the Senate, in the Senate Finance Committee, and many of the people that were here, plus others that had questions about it, did testify against the bill. The rumors we're hearing is that it is more likely to pass now than it has been, but they only have until the 17th, which is next week. So whether it will be one of those that are pushed or not, I did personally have a meeting with the governor in his Palmer office and told him our concerns, because one of the targeted areas is 111,000 acres in our borough. And I told him that I felt that there needed to be some support from the locals, our local government, get consideration. They needed to have some public hearings out here so people could come and talk, etc. And the long and the short of that is he is going to have a meeting with the borough manager and myself on that issue, as well as other issues that we feel the state is pushing us on, and he's going to set aside about a day or 3/4 of a day for us to be able to sit down and talk about some of these things. But if it does pass and it does get on his desk, and there's just, in my opinion, so many unknowns regarding exactly how this is going to be implemented, how it's going to affect what's going on in our state and stuff. So to me it is a concern, but that's the latest. So since Senate Finance, they didn't pass it out of Senate Finance today, so whether they will hear it again and but watch for it. If you guys are not in favor of it or you are in favor of it, call in and testify to Senate Finance regarding it. So, okay. Alrighty, so one of the hot button issues, of course, is the library, if you didn't know that by now, for the last hour and a half. And so Jackie is here, let me caution all of you, as I have cautioned her, is the fact that we are live streaming. The hearing is going to be between her and some of the librarians. And so it's not set up exactly like a court situation, but we don't want to jeopardize her presentation or the presentation from the librarians. So Jackie?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jackie Ivy Goforth. I'm Jackie Ivy, the writer. It's my name. I've always been proud of my name on it. And when I was first published, I stood down at the bookstore and just sobbed because I love books. I have always loved books, and I always loved libraries. And it smelled like a real book, and it had my name on it. I couldn't believe how much treasure is found between the covers of a book. Now, how this came about. 3 months ago, I saw on a Twitter, Libs from TikTok, a blurred image of a book, an image from a book. And I could not believe my eyes. And so I ordered it on Kindle. And my eyes were not lying. So I instantly returned it. I'm going to send this book around, and I always send it with the Bible. I always, whenever I'm looking at it, I look at it with my Bible. Because this is not treasure between this cover. This is an assault on the senses and an attack on innocence. And I want everyone to see it. Now, I have filed a book complaint with this. You have to do it with policy and procedure, and I've already been down to the police departments too. But because if I see a child getting attacked by a moose, I'm going to do something. I'm not going to go file a book report. If I see a child being attacked by a predator, I'm going to do something. So I wasn't going to wait, and I had to file a book report, so I did. And the book report hearing is coming up, but in the meantime, I filed 53 more. MatSu Borough has 53 library reconsideration complaints that I've hand-delivered. Today I was late because I just filed 42 of them with Wasilla. The Wasilla Library has 42 reconsideration book complaints. Palmer Library had 4. Okay, Now, I got this information, there's a flyer we're going to send out too. I got this information from that site, booklooks.org, I believe that's it. And also the one below it is the site for Palmer, and you can get on there and look under card catalog, and it will tell you which libraries each book resides at. I also have the link for schools, but I couldn't get it on there, it didn't work, so I can send it to CJ, and maybe she can send it out to you. There is a book reconsideration hearing set up May 18th at 2 p.m. It is at the MatSu Borough building. It is open to the public, but the only ones who will be able to present is me, I'm the patron. I will present for 5 minutes, and then the librarian will present for 5 minutes, and there will be 5 to 7 people who will be sitting in on this, deciding what they will do. This book, if you don't know, the Alaska librarians went to a conference last month at the ALA in Fairbanks. And there was a librarian there from Fairbanks. And she said, they needed to get this information into conservative families and into conservative children. And if it was a nonprofit cover, they couldn't do it. So they had to put something out there that the content could be hidden within. That's literally on the Alaska Watchman article of April 28th. So there are 3, what we're dealing with is a book that has already had a challenge in Ketchikan, and it did not succeed. I believe it's because of the Miller test. There's a Miller test on everything up against the First Amendment. The First Amendment is very broad and it's very strong. It really is. It's to protect us so that we are not held back from reading what we want to read and seeing the information that we want to see. It's a right every American citizen has. And there's 3 things you have to do in the Miller test. Number 1, you have to prove it's got an prurient interest in sexual matters. Number 2, you have to prove that it shows things that are improper. And number 3 is it is set up on community standards. The community standard, and it's not a national community standards, it's the community standards. So if anyone has time on May 18th to be at the MatSu Borough building, there will be a hearing. No one will be allowed to speak. It's going to be a librarian and me. We will be speaking. It's supposed to take an hour. But I believe once you see this book and once you see what we have to deal with, everybody who cares, you may want to be there to hear what the librarian has to say. 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
So I'll leave it up to, any or all of you that want to attend. So now we always have announcements at the end of the meeting. And so does anybody have an announcement of an upcoming meeting or anything going on that they want everybody to know about? Is Steve still here? Maybe he's gone. Okay. One of the things, are you filled up on your boards and commissions, or do you have some vacancies? Because I know we have some people here tonight that live in Palmer as well as in close to Palmer. So I know some of your boards and commissions allow people outside of Palmer. So do you need some candidates for those positions?
I think the airport one, I'm not sure of, and it's the most complicated one.
And is that the public member? Because I think you have two public members.
Right, I'm not sure. I know
Okay.
One of them passed away, and I've got to figure out. There's a public member, there's one with interest in the
airport, right?
Airport, someone who lives near the airport. Yeah, there's different.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I'd be fine. Happy
Yeah.
to take
So if you, like I know the Parks and Rec, you have people who live inside the city and outside, and we too, I have for one of our boards and commissions regarding the appeals board. What that is if somebody is not happy with a decision from the planning commission or the plating board, which is a subdivision regulations, that they can appeal. And so it's somebody that, for that board, it's an alternate position, so you wouldn't have a long time, to serve on it. It wouldn't be a high demand type, but you would be somebody that would want to be able to read the code and be able to decipher when the code says may or shall, or says, a definite word, that it can be implemented that way. So you don't have to have any legal experience, but you have to have a mind that is interested in that. And you can either see me or CJ and Eric in the back. And for those of you, and I know there are many here that have said yes, maybe there's some people, a couple of them sitting together that maybe they wish they hadn't said yes, but they're both very well qualified, but I appreciate all of you, because many of you have said yes to the boards and commissions, and that's what changes things. You can see what's going on with the library board. A year ago, or whatever, 14 months ago, when she was appointed, I kiddingly said to her, well, that could be a hot topic sometime, but of course it wasn't at that time, and I wasn't trying to prophesy, but I guess that's what happened. So anyway, so there is opportunities on the boards and commissions, and if you don't want to run for office, there will be 2 assembly seats up this fall. One is for the city of Wasilla area, and the other is the Big Lake area. They both do have incumbents. I have not heard whether they're going to run or not. Palmer, you have 2, two city council positions up. On those, you would have to live inside the city of Palmer. In Wasilla, there is 2 council seats up also, and also in the city of Houston. For the school board, there are 2 seats also, 3 seats? 3 seats up for the school board. Yes?
Wasilla Mayor is up too.
Oh, yes, that's right. And Wasilla Mayor is up this time. Yeah. Okay. So Karen, he has a mic. Can I go to him and then we'll jump to you?
I was just going to ask, who is the assembly person for Big Lake?
Moki too. His term is up. And I haven't heard whether he's going to run or not. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Simple question, how many of you guys like ice cream? Who's ready for summer to be here? Raise your hand for the ice cream. Who's
You buying next time? Okay, that's good. You guys all come in 2 weeks? He's buying.
I could throw out 2 more questions out there. The reason why I am is they are taking public testimony tomorrow on HB4 ranked choice voting. Right now, they've had 50 people that have testified the last round, and it is 3-1 to 4-1 for keeping ranked choice voting. So those that are here in this room, if you have not called in, it starts at 3 o'clock. They are limiting it to 3:15. If you have not called in by 3:15, you will not be on the list. They are really short window because it starts at 3 and they're only giving you 15 minutes to get yourself signed up to testify. But if we don't call in, as far as the legislators down in Juneau are concerned, ranked choice voting is the cat's meow.
Anybody else have any other questions or announcements? Yes, sir, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
On that, email your email that your testimony in, because I know with HB 105, we beat them, but last night I heard 600 to 400 in written testimony, where the LGBTD crowd outnumbered us 5-1.
Speaking of that.
Yeah, and Mike, now there was an amendment at on the House, Education Committee that sort of almost did opposite of what the governor intended for with House Bill 105, and now it's supposed to go to House Judiciary. Have they had a hearing yet on that, do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. I have talked to Sarah about that, and I've talked to Sarah about that, and I've asked that she reverse the CS and revert it back to the original, because there's a poison pill that was added in there by Henshaw it's going to cost $6 million for some type of a deal to be able to talk to parents. It was really weird. It's like 50-page, amendment. As well as what Ruffridge did with the CS. Right. It really changed a lot of it. Although he said that he worked with the governor on it, I'm hesitant, but I've talked to Sarah to get rid of the CS and go back to the original. What Sarah does, I don't know, but I'm hoping that she will.
Well, what I remember about House Bill 105 is that the parents would have to opt in, and then it was changed in committee, so the parents have to opt out if they don't want their children. So that's what. Go ahead.
Mike's right, email does work. However, before you send that email, make sure you have the right email address, because they all changed their address this year. So make sure you get an updated list.
Representative dot their name, not rep dot. Okay. It's representative dot the name, not rep dot the name. That's a change.
Can I ask you, Jackie? I'm sorry. I forgot one thing since I have no script. This book is marketed and in most of the libraries as young adult. Young adult is 14 to 17. And some of the books that I turned in and have looked at are in like elementary schools.
And junior middle schools.
And junior middle schools. Thank you.
Edna?
Oh, on the email, if we're going to send an email for the, what were we just talking about?
House
the
Bill
ranked choice
105, House Bill 133,
the ranked choice
House
voting.
Bill 49, House Bill, 4? Yeah, take your pick.
The ranked choice voting. If we send in the email, do we also need to include our address and our phone number? No? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, your name.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have somebody to sign the ranked choice petition back in the back if you haven't gotten a chance to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I may be confused, but I believe the petition process, which was to this in the First Amendment to the Constitution, bypasses the legislature, if I'm not mistaken. It does. It bypasses the legislature. The people basically...
Well, it only puts it on the ballot.
That's
for
correct.
the people in the state of Alaska to vote on it.
But the most important part is it bypasses the legislature. And, yeah, it's important we support this bill and this initiative. But they've got another bill going, and it may or may not make it. This bill here, we give it 26,000, which I have no doubt, because we've had overwhelming response. The response has been so good, they called the cops on me out there at that Airmen's Association meeting out there. Apparently, the person that invited me out there wasn't authorized to let me set up. But they called the cops on me to get rid of me because I was over the target. This bill here, it's right here in the Green Book if you want to read it. You go to the website, it's very well done. And we don't have to wait on the legislature. Well, it'll be 2024 before this gets on the ballot. But it's important that we send a message to the legislatures. If they don't want to listen to us, we'll go ahead and do it without them.
Right, the thing is, with the legislators, they could do it immediately, and it would change for the 2024 election. With this, so do both, right? Just do both. But with this petition, the petition itself will just be on the 2024 ballot, and then would not be effective until 2026. So it's important to do both and push as much as you possibly can on all of it. Candy, did you have some kind of comment?
The Young Americans Foundation is having their National Conservative Student Conference July 24th and 5th. And this is for full-time college students and high school seniors that will be starting their freshman year. So that you can go to YAF.org, which is YoungAmericans.org. I do have one flyer here if anyone wants to take it or look at it. And it's for conservative students. This is going to be in Washington, D.C., but they also have other meetings at the Reagan Ranch in California. Thank you. Oh, also, a reminder about Moms for Liberty has an Alaska chapter. So those that have not been aware of it can sign up for the Alaska chapter. There was a meeting, I didn't hear from anyone that was at the meeting already, but.
Back to ranked choice voting, we got word that they want to try to get all the petitions in before the end of August, and which I don't think they'll have any problem doing. But I thought it was to try to get it on the ballot in this year.
No, there's no state election this year. There's only borough and city elections this year. So there's no general election. So, yeah, so it has to go on 2024.
Thank you.
Any other announcements or anything?
Mr. Vries, I should know more, but got to do this too. You did say though that if it passes in the bill that the representatives are trying to pass, it would help us in 2024 not to have to deal with ranked choice voting?
So when a piece of legislation is before a council or assembly or the state legislature or the feds, Congress, it has an effective date clause on it. So if, let's say the legislature woke up and they would, have a public hearing and they would pass it out of the House and it would go to the Senate and the governor would sign that and say that was all taken place, say within, say like February of next year. The effective date clause of that would be then February of next year, which then would be in time to remove the ranked choice for the November of 2024. Okay, did I make that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that's why do both. put as much pressure on both. And, you know, for the petition booklets, it's just not the Valley. They have guidelines regarding getting signatures from all of the different 40 districts. I don't think they have to have one from every district, but maybe 30, 35 different districts. I think they have to have petition signed books. So, but yeah, so keep the pressure on both. But the quickest route, so we wouldn't have to go through, and in 2024, we know we're going to have a presidential election, and so it would be nice to have that, even though that doesn't be affected by the ranked choice, that would be nice not to have, because that's going to be a big turnout for elections. So.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have anything further, sir? You're welcome anytime. I've told you that many times. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, let's stand. And I'll say it again, good things are happening in the borough. And one of the reasons, and you may be thinking, I don't know, that gray hair's gotten to that lady. We've heard, an hour and a half tonight of how bad it is and what's going on and that kind of stuff. But we know we're in a battle between good and evil, and so people are rising up, as you can see. And as I said, many of you have been jumped to the forefront for roads and boards and commissions, and so you're getting your feet wet and you're realizing, I think all of you, at what is at stake, and we will not give up, because we are on the right side and we will continue to push. So Lord, I thank you again for allowing us to be born in this great country, the country I believe, Lord, that you founded. This was your vision, Lord, for a country to honor you, to bring you glory, and to be established in righteousness, Lord. And Lord, we will, all of us, step up to the plate and do what you ask us to do. Each one of us have an assignment, Lord. You did not create us, Lord, for nothing, but each one of us have been created to accomplish tasks. And so, Lord, we yield to those tasks, and we give you all the praise and all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. In 2 weeks, if they don't go into a special session right away, which I keep hearing more and more things about a special session, they're supposed to be done on the 17th. And if so, we will try to get a couple of the people that serve down in Juneau to come 2 weeks from tonight. So, great. Thank you. Thank you, Edna.
Hello, my fellow Alaskans. Thank you guys all for being here today. It's greatly appreciated. I'm going to take just a moment here. I want you guys to see the murals that are here inside of the room. They are absolutely beautiful. Snap a picture if you get a chance. If you have not liked and shared today's video, please like and share this video. Today was an amazing day here, and it was definitely well worth your time. And trying to get out some of that blur there on the other side of the screen. Hopefully you can get a good shot of that. And this is the one that I really do love. And I'll make sure I get a full shot here of this one. Absolutely, positively gorgeous. I couldn't ask for a better looking picture there. So definitely take a shot of that for your camera.
He doesn't want these pictures taken. These are copyrighted.
Okay, well,
These are copyrighted.
nothing says I can't video them.
Yeah, the pastor brought that up. He does not want people taking pictures of these. Anyway, this is the train that Ronald Reagan did in his.
And again, if you haven't liked and shared this video, please do that right now. If you are on Rumble, please go to rumble.com and click that support and subscribe button. I just saw someone else has subscribed to us, so that means that we are just one away from being able to live stream directly to them. That's one more way we can make sure we are unfiltered and uncut. and it would be greatly appreciated if we can get more people on there lined up so we can make sure that mainstream media and places like YouTube, who likes to ban videos for no reason, can't do that. So again, thank you guys all for being here today. And I also wanted to give you an update. My lawsuit is still going on. It has not ended. And your support is greatly appreciated. We are in the process to where we should be hopefully having an attorney here real soon representing us on this case. And I always like to say, when it comes right down to it, that the person suing us, they handed us the golden goose and kept the egg for themselves here recently. And we really do appreciate when people do that. Our elections are very important. They missed the ball completely when it comes right down to it. Our elections of integrity here in Alaska is definitely under suspect, and we need to do something to help protect our election integrity. One too many elections here in Alaska have been won and lost by a single vote, and we got to make sure that we stand up united together, and hopefully you guys can all make that happen. Thank you guys again once and all for being here. Go to our website, Politadick.com. Click that support button. Your proceeds help make sure that we are able to continue to keep doing this, afford the gas to get there, and every penny goes right back into what we're doing. And right now, all of your support is going into securing a quality attorney, because we want to expose the deep-seated corruption going on out there. The puppet masters that like to control their puppets when they get them elected into positions. And we got a very good example. We got Mary Patola sitting down there in Congress, and it's because the puppet masters wanted to put their backing behind the second place winner. When it came to the Republican Party, Sarah Palin won in the special primary. She won again in the special general election. She won again in the regular primary, and she won again in the special general election. Yet the party decided to throw all of their backing into the other candidate. And I'm not saying that I prefer Sarah Palin over Begich, but when it comes right down to it, the popularity vote of Alaskans overwhelmingly picked Sarah each time. And the political elite, the puppet masters that want to make sure that who they want elected are pushed forward. They cost Alaska's a Republican vote down there in Congress, and we got to keep exposing that for the whole world to see. Thanks again for being here today. Again, go to our website, Politadick.com. You can find this video on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and on Rumble here in a few hours, all at Politadick. As always, you can watch it on our website at Politadick.com. And if you are on our website, please go to that support page, click one of the buttons there, make a donation. Again, even if it's just $5 for a cup of coffee, that helps us keep us going while we're sitting at a lot of these long events and making sure that we get it all uncut and unfiltered for all of you. Thanks for being here.